You don't have to. Everyone has their own story of how Jesus gets involved in your life. So never compare your story with someone else's story, because then we become unthankful. Ian, you woke up in hospital.
I'm doing that. Thanks, Henrik. Absolutely my story, and Hendrik and I spent a good bit of time a while back over a bar and some beer having a story, and he gave me a phone call, and now I'm sitting in front of you telling the story. So it's a bit nerve-wracking, but I'm really privileged to be here with you tonight. I'm going to start off with, if you can imagine, if you've ever been to an emergency ward. I didn't know anything. And the most calm, just calm, serene feeling you can have, where there's no worries, and just absolute peace. And there's, in front of you, you're lying on a bed, and there's 3 nurses doing the best they can to bring you back to life. And you're watching this, and it's not scary at all. It's entirely peaceful and calm, and Jesus is next to you. And the question is, what do you want to do? And I chose to go back. And I don't remember much else other than having quite a feeling of overwhelmingness as I started to come around with these people desperately trying to save your life. And I don't think there was much coming out of me because I had a pipe down my throat. And I was screaming, "Where are Lynn and the kids?" at them, which I don't think really was audible at that stage. And then I remember not much else. And I remember waking up in a ward, and my very good friend was next to me, and I turned to him and I said, "Where are Lynn and the kids?" And he just burst into tears. And how I came to be in that hospital is we were holidaying up in the Drakensberg. And I'm a technical guy, and at that stage in my life, I was modeling all sorts of things, including carbon monoxide, and we were in a cottage up in the Drakensberg, and my little boy Connor and Megan and Lynn and I were in a bathroom, and we were trying to bath the kids. It was chaos, and Connor kept on running in and out, if I remember correctly, and I latched the door. And that's really the last thing I remember. Was there was a wall, and I remember handing Connor and Megan to Carolyn, and I woke up in hospital later. And unfortunately, Sean, who was there, came into our cottage, and he heard the shower going. He said, "Oh no, they're busy showering. It's not a problem." And he walked out and he said, "No, hang on. There's no noise coming from the shower." And he smashed the door down, and he found us lying on the floor. I was lying in the shower, and Megan and Connor and Lynn were lying on the floor. And he pulled us out, and you can imagine the trauma that this guy's going through. His wife and his little boy were with us, throws us all into a car and rushes 10 k's down the mountain. And there was a doctor there, and the call was, they can keep me alive, but not Lynn, Megan and Connor. And that's how I landed up in the hospital. But I know you guys are having this series, and for me, I'm very open about this. I'm not scared to talk about it. I'm very fortunate. I've had time to spend with other people who've lost loved ones, and they've handled it differently. I'm quite open about it. I might get a bit emotional, but I just want to, in that moment, the love of God. I've always been a Christian. I never had a a major moment in my life where I had my mom and my dad and the whole family have always been strong Christians. And I never doubted that God wasn't with me at any stage. But the presence of God at that point in time is just indescribable. And I think we need to talk a little bit about after that, because I can tell you there's not much, I don't know what the word is, to put you on a low when you walk into a morgue and you have to identify your wife and your 2 kids. And that's the law, and that's what I had to do. And it was unbelievably difficult and traumatic. I wish that not on my worst enemy. And I went back to Pretoria where we were, and I spent, I think, the next 2 weeks between my parents in their bed. And I can remember you just have nothing. And I can remember the first day that I went back to our house. I was very fortunate. I wanted to go back to our house. And my poor brother, who's 10 years younger than me, he lived with us. And you can imagine this poor guy. He has Ian coming back. Mom's phoning and saying, listen, you put all the pills, you put everything away that he can hurt himself out with. And I needed to be back home. That was where I felt comfortable. And I can remember the first day I woke up. And I can remember opening my eyes, and every day, for a split second, everything's okay. And then you realize Lynn's not next to you. And I'm sure some of you might know what that's like. It's just a letdown. For that second, everything's okay, and then it's not okay. And I can remember saying to myself, okay, you need to count to 3, and then you need to get out of bed and you need to put your pants on. Because you need to get out of bed. And I got up to about 798, but I realized that wasn't going to work. And I thought, oh my goodness, what are you going to do? So I said, all right, you're allowed 3 breaths. And on your 3rd breath, you get out of bed and you put your pants on. And that's really how I started. And I think my hand was held. We can talk a little bit just now about, I never felt betrayed by God or anything like that. I'm very fortunate. And I knew the whole time He was just crying with me. I had this sense of Him just in absolute agony for me next to me. And I think that's something that I learned out of this, was this absolute, I suppose one can say love, but just unconditional empathy, willing me on, and it was my choice. Make no mistake about this, and I'll be very brutal for you, it's your choice. There were many times I can remember the first time at home I opened a beer. And the choice was, okay, are you going to be able to have a beer or are you going to have 30? I didn't, I had a beer. And it was my choice. And the strength and the love of God just holding me through that time. I can remember thinking at one stage early on, what are you going to do? Because if you don't want to be here, then make that choice. And fortunately, the very first thing I thought about was that experience in the hospital, which was a very personal choice to tell you guys tonight. I don't walk around telling people too much about that, but there is no doubt in my mind that I was given a choice that night. And here I sit with you years later, and I'm more than okay. And I don't go through many days when I don't think of Lynn, Connor, and the kids. I really look forward to seeing them one day. But that's not my place at the moment. And I'm massively relieved to not have to worry about that. And that was the story that we had that evening and had quite a big chat about. And I'm pleased to be able to come and share it with you guys tonight.
So Ian, thank you so much for sharing. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming that you made that choice to live. And if I look at our story that we've read, somehow you, if I dare say it, your situation was your leprosy. And you turned to Jesus. And in the scripture it says, the one who turned to him, he made whole. So the others were sick, but the one who turned to him became whole. And again, Ian's story is Ian's story, because he also told me about a friend who took his motorcycle and drove through upcountry for a year, who also suffered loss. So everyone, God walks through pain, and to get thankful differently with each and every one. But then, part 2 of Ian's story, again, Ian's story. Please tell us about that.
Yeah, so if you can put yourself a couple of months after that, Carolyn was the first girlfriend I ever had. I can remember I went to a boys' school. I was a bit of sotsy. I enjoyed doing all the boys' stuff and carrying on. And I can remember walking into varsity in first year and sitting in the chemistry class. And Carolyn came and sat next to me. And I can remember going, oh dear, this is not normal. And I, after the accident, spent a lot of time with my family. I surrounded myself with family, surrounded myself with friends. And if I can, I'll give you one piece of advice from Ian. If you meet people who've suffered loss, you don't have to say anything. Don't stress. Don't stress about, you might feel awkward. What do I say to Ian now? Yes, like I can remember people walking down the passage and seeing people and then turn around and run. And you don't have to fear at all. If you're feeling awkward, just walk up to the person, put your hand on their shoulder. Don't say anything. It was the most comforting thing for me, just for people to say, hey, Stafter, I don't know what to say, but your friends are really important. And I surrounded myself with friends, and quite a while later, my sister was invited to a party, somebody's 30th birthday. And she said, come on, man. It's time. You need to get back into the world. And I was like, oh man, you're going to be crazy. I'm not going to do this. Anyway, I went to the party. And I actually knew the person who the party was. It was friends of my parents. It was a very good friend of my sister's. And I can remember I said to my sister, you don't leave my side. I sit to this party, you sit here, and Dirk must sit here, my husband must sit this side. Don't let me loose. Don't let these people loose on me. And as luck would have it, we go to this party, and it was Estelle's party. And Estelle had organized that after each course, people move. Oh boy, that was hectic. And on the third course, Estelle landed up next to me, and I tell you, it was like a wave of that chemistry class coming back. And I knew, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. And went back, and over the coming couple of weeks and months, I landed up seeing Estelle through my sister a couple of times. And I can't remember. Estelle will have to tell her story, but that's for another day maybe. But I can remember realizing, sure, there's there's something amazing here. And I remember chatting to my sister about it and saying to her, I'm going to have to talk to Estelle because she's never going to talk to me. In terms of a relationship and what I sensed. And I phoned her one day and I said to her, look, can I meet you for a cup of coffee? I got to talk to you. And we met at a coffee house in Sandton, and we walked in and said hello, and I said, look, if I've got this wrong, I'm really sorry. But I've gathered there's a feeling here, and if I've got it wrong, I'm sorry. So she said to me, no, you don't have it wrong. So I said, okay, I want to ask you 3 questions. I'm going to America for a period of time, and I've got 3 questions for you, and forgive me for asking them. I knew the answer to the first one, but I said to her, if you're not a Christian, I can't have a relationship with you, because if you don't believe Carolyn, Megan, and Connor on heaven, I can't have a relationship with you. Luckily, that wasn't a problem. I knew Estelle's background, and that wasn't a problem. The second one was, if you can't deal with the fact that I'm going to have bad days for the rest of my life, we're going to have a different conversation. And she's really, and then I said the second and the last one is, if you can't live with the fact that I will always love Lynn and the kids, we can't have a relationship. And I said to her, I've come to understand that I can love somebody else, but I will always love Lynn and the kids. And Estelle sat there, and she answered me in the most amazing way. It's almost as if her life had prepared her for that moment. And her grandfather had married twice. And she had a very close relationship with her Omar, who was the second wife of the grandfather. And when she was small, she always used to say, who do you love the most? To her mother, my brothers or me, and her mom and her grandmother would always say, no, there's a place in my heart for you. There's a place in my heart for your brother, and you can't get in the other space. And anyway, I said to her, right, when I come back from America, I'll give you a call and we can go out on the date. And we did so, and it is now many years later, and I have 3 beautiful kids. Here's little Danielle over there, and Kyra, and Annabelle. And then Estelle, is just unbelievable. And we celebrate Megan and Connor's birthdays, Lynn's birthday every year. And I'll tell you one story before I hand over to Hendrik. When Annabelle was little, she must have been about grade 1 or so, we got called into the teacher because she was very concerned. That we thought, oh my goodness, what's happened here? And Annabelle had drawn a picture of her family. And in this picture was her little baby sister, her middle sister, here was Annabelle, here was mom and dad, and here was her brother Connor, and her sister Megan, and her aunt Lynn. And the teacher said, look, we've got a problem here because she thinks there's people in heaven who are her brother and sister. And we had to explain this, but I think the story of this is everybody is in despair about something today. And you can be stripped down massively, or you can be in a really tough situation in life. And God is right there with you. You might not know it, but I can tell you it was unbelievable. And I have been restored. I sit here today and am I sad about and in despair about Megan and Connor and Lynn? Absolutely. But I've been restored, I've been blessed, I've been given hope, and I just have all of this over there, and it's just incredible, and I don't share much to many people like this, but I just encourage you to, in your journey and your faith, never, in your deepest, darkest moments of despair, just remember that God is there. And you know, that sense of absolute desperate despair that God had for me in those very, very deep, dark hours. And in the dark hours of the night, He is right there. And we have a little saying in the family, in the beginning, after trauma like this, that I had, you can't think a year ahead. It means nothing to you. You're lucky in the beginning if you can think about tomorrow. You know, you're just trying to get through the next breath. And I can remember, right, even quite a while afterwards, Estelle and I would look and we'd say, "How was your day?" And we'd fuck poser, and we'd say, "Today was a good day." And I encourage you, you know, when you're in that moment of pretty dark places, just to remember today, you know, and as tough as it can be, today is a good day was our mantra. And as the years have passed, I sometimes get sucked into the craziness of this world, and I lose a little bit of perspective every now and again. And then we look at each other and we say, "Hey, how's today?" And you just calibrate it again about today's a good day, you know. So, yeah, thanks, Hendrik.
It's going to be invited sitting here. May I ask to invite the three of you to come and stand there, and then we would like to just pray for you, if it's okay.
Yeah.
You can just stand with your family. Maybe you do this again. If you are comfortable, Martha, would you? Not if you're comfortable. I mean, if you are comfortable, would you mind extending your hands? And it's a sign that, if you want to, we are blessing you as a family. Thank you for sharing this with us. The word says, "You overcome by the blood of the Lamb, Jesus, and by the word of the testimony." Would you mind praying for them? Okay.
Jesus Christ, thank you so much for Ian and his family's amazing testimony. Specifically, Jesus, of who you are in the dark and deepest struggles of our lives. Thank you that they can testify that you are alive and you are with us every second. I ask that you will bless this family, Jesus, with more of your presence. May they keep on walking with you, Jesus, step by step, every day, in every good day. We thank you for this family. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
I want to say one other thing that I think is just, you know, God is good and He's really good always. On the farm that we were staying at, the farmer had installed a gas geyser, and I grew up with gas in the house. And the guys who installed it had made an error in connecting the flue. So the exhausting out the room of the carbon monoxide didn't go out the room, it stayed in the room. And it must have been, I'm going to say 10 years after the accident had happened. A friend of my dad's was hunting in the Kalahari with a bunch of guys. You know, you go on a guy's trip, all that, and the manna going out. And they were sitting around a campfire, and he had been invited to join this group of men who'd gone out. He didn't know them from a bar or so. And during the course of the conversation the one evening, the one guy started talking about this burden that he was carrying. And it got quite serious at one stage, and this guy was almost breaking down. And Jeff, my dad's friend, said, "Are you talking about Ian Home?" And it happened to be the farmer whose farm we are on with these guys. Now you can imagine the anxiety that a bunch of guys op die jachtplaas are going through. And he turned to Jeff and said, "Yes." And he said, "Let me tell you a story about Ian, because I know the family very well." And he said, "Ian is remarried. I think Annabelle was probably 2 or 3 at that stage, and Cairo had been born." And he explained, and this guy cried. And I mean, how amazing is God to do that to people? To take somebody who's living with this absolute anxiety in his life about this thing that had happened that he didn't have to feel responsible for, but and I'm just in awe, you know. Anyway, I just didn't.
Thank you very much.